Okay, everyone, it is 6 o'clock.
I can hear.
Call to order the Planning Commission meeting of March 19, 2025. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for
Statement of values.
statement of values. I can read it there.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and the will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interests of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so that we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. You can sit. And Elizabeth, please read the roll.
Commissioner Botnagar,
Present.
Commissioner Biagini,
Present?
Commissioner Chair Kuru, Commissioner Wang,
Here.
Commissioner Boza,
Here.
Chair Salame,
Here.
Commissioner Crutchlow.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Crutchlow, could you please read the meeting procedures?
Declaration of Commission procedures. Public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. The chair of the commission directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the commission. Any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent hearing. Applicants will be allowed up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals. Following the staff presentation of the item, other speakers will be given up to 2 minutes. The applicant is allotted up to 5 minutes for rebuttal of the comments. No additional comments will be accepted upon close of public hearing, although the commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. Special procedures, times, limits may be applied to any item as prescribed by the chair. Appeal of commission actions must be filed within writing within 7 calendar days. Chair?
Copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each of the items on the agenda are available from the Planning Division office on the Friday afternoon preceding the meeting and available online. As part of the meeting allows for applicants or into continuances and exceptions. So members
me,
of the
Mr.
public or other
Chair.
interested parties to request.
Pardon me, before we go any further, we still have a procedural matter we need to take care of. We have a commissioner appearing remotely.
Right.
And so because of that, I need to ask the commissioner, are you participating remotely due to a physical infirmity or because of care for a family member, without getting specific as to what either of those things might be?
I'm following the doctor's orders. That's why I'm remote tonight.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, under the Brown Act, it is necessary for the commission to take a vote to approve Commissioner Biagini's remote appearance.
I did skip all of that whole page, didn't I? Yeah.
I didn't know there was a page, 'cause
There's
I don't think we've done this before.
Absences and, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, and it includes that. Okay. So let's, I move to allow Commissioner Biagini to appear remotely.
Second. Chair Kuru.
Okay, you should be able to record your vote.
I don't see it.
Nope.
Yeah, see it.
Don't see it.
I see it.
Not,
Did you join
Yes,
in the meeting?
but I haven't seen it.
You don't see it. Okay, I don't know why. Okay. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Kuru?
yes.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes,
Commissioner Boza?
Yes, did you get mine?
I see your vote remotely. I mean, yes, on the, Chair Salame?
Yes.
Commissioner Crutchlow?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
And, well,
That it's unanimous.
Chair,
technically,
may I make a comment real quick?
Was Commissioner Biagini supposed to vote on that, too?
she is entitled to vote.
Okay. It's
She does, she's not required to, but,
Yes,
Yes, okay, thank you.
and one more procedural thing. Before you take any action tonight, Commissioner Biagini, you first have to state whether there is any person 18 years of age or older in the room with you every time you vote. Are you alone, or is there
Okay.
someone lurking?
I am alone. The door is closed. If anybody opens that door, they're going to get yelled at.
Thank
So
you,
not a
Commissioner.
problem.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Biagini, may I suggest your microphone is very good. You may want to mute yourself.
Frequently.
Okay,
Just in case.
all right, will do.
Thank you. I guess we are returning to continuances and exceptions. This part of the meeting allows for applicants, members of the public, or other interested parties to request an item be continued without hearing, withdrawn, or taken out of order. Are there any requests from applicants, the public, or the commission for a continuance or exception for any of the items on tonight's agenda?
Did you request it, or do you want me to?
Not hearing
We
any?
do have, Chair, we do have an item to request for continuance. It would be item number 2 on public hearing, the recommendation on a general plan text amendment for the 2023-2031 housing element sites inventory list. Did we want to do that to date certain?
Yeah, I would recommend we do. So we'd actually need to go through the process of opening the public hearing.
Okay.
So is this a continuance to a specific date?
It is, Chair, and we'll ask that you open the public hearing to accomplish that. As such, I might suggest we wait until we get to that item on the agenda so we can actually do it under public hearing, open the public hearing at that time. So I'm sorry for the extra steps, but you can actually continue with the consent calendar, and we'll bring this back to you in a moment.
All right. So we'll wait for a continuance on that until we open public hearing. Got it. So we are on to consent calendar. Commissioner Crutchlow, can you please read the
Yes.
info for that?
The procedure for the consent calendar is as follows. Consent calendar items may be enacted, approved, or adopted by one motion unless they're requested to be removed by anyone for discussion or explanation. If any member of the Planning Commission, staff, the applicant, or a member of the public wishes to comment on the consent calendar item or would like the item to be heard on a regular agenda, make this request now. Items listed on the consent calendar with associated file numbers constitute public hearing items. Chair.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'd like to recuse myself. Thank you. I was absent and I appreciated allowing me to be recovering from flu.
I'll second the motion.
You were absent on February 19th.
The last meeting.
Okay, the motion was made by Commissioner Boza and seconded by Commissioner Biagini to approve the consent calendar. Go ahead and cast your vote.
And I apologize for the tediousness, but Commissioner Biagini, is there anyone 18 years or older in the room with you now?
He has to ask it.
You have to ask it every time.
Every time.
Yeah, I understand that.
Wait a minute.
No, just my dogs, but they're not 18.
Thank you.
Commissioners, cast your vote. Commissioner Biagini, if you want to give your voice vote on this.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Crutchlow, are you able to cast your vote?
No, I'm not, so I vote yes.
Commissioner Botnagar?
Vote yes.
Thank you. Okay, the motion passed. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we have moved on to public presentations. Elizabeth, are there any members of the public that would like to briefly address the commission on any item not on the agenda?
We do not have anyone in the council chambers or online. So no, we do not have any requests.
Okay, so we'll zoom through on to the public hearing portion. Let me read the titles of the items on the agenda, and then we'll entertain possible motions on continuances. Okay, item 2, public hearing recommendation on a general plan text amendment for the 2023 to 2031 housing element sites inventory list. And then item 3, public hearing action on conditional use permit and variances to allow expansion of an existing service station by removing a portion of the fuel canopy and 2 fuel dispensers, and by adding a 1,605 square foot convenience store and self-service car wash within the rear setback for the store at 2455 Lawrence Expressway. The final item tonight will be Planning Commission discussion on questions for a future study session on data centers. So we can discuss item 2 first and entertain possible continuances. I have to open for public hearing, though.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This item would delete one site from our housing element inventory and add a second site, which is the Kylie Mission Point project. The Kylie Corporation has asked us for a little bit of additional time to work out the nuances of exactly how we are describing their project in the housing element. Because of that, we'd like to ask you to continue this until April 19th.
16th.
Pardon me, April 16th. So if you would please declare the public hearing to be open and then entertain a motion to continue to April 16th, that would be great.
Okay. Is there any conversation among commissioners before we open it to public hearing? And okay. All right, then we'll open it for public hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak on it before?
Yes, we do have one speaker card, Jaime Vasquez.
This is
You
specifically
did
on
say
the
item
housing
2, so
element.
it is on this item. Thank you.
Working men and women for the NorCal Carpenters Union, Local 405. And the change in this housing element, removing the 701 Patrick Henry Drive and adding 3005 Henry, Democracy Way, presents an opportunity to build projects truly that benefit this community, but that depends on who builds them. Responsible development is just about location, it's about contractors you allow to do the work. If you want these projects to uplift the community, they must be built by responsible general contractors who pay area standard wages, hire from state certified apprenticeship programs, and invest in skilled workforce. We've seen what happens when low road contractors cut corners. Workers are exploited, wages are suppressed, and the very community we're trying to help is harmed. That's not the kind of development that Santa Clara needs. I urge for you to ensure that housing projects are built the right way with responsible contractors who respect workers, uphold labor standards, and create pathways to good careers. That's how we build a stronger, more sustainable community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do I hear a motion to continue?
Motion to continue until April 16th.
Second.
That was the dead heat.
Commissioner Biagini, are you still alone?
I am still alone, yes.
Thank you.
The motion was made by Commissioner Crutchlow, seconded by Commissioner Biagini to continue this item date certain to April 16th. Go ahead and record your vote.
I am a yes, and I'm still.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Botnagar?
Yes.
Commissioner Crutchlow?
Yes.
Thank you, and the motion passed. Thank you.
Okay, so that passed, of course. We'll continue to that item until April, and then we'll discuss it in more detail. I guess it doesn't have to be renoticed then, right? Because we're continuing, right? Okay. So we'll move on to public hearing for the changes to the gas station, and I assume there's a presentation. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Chair. Andrew Slepchuk, City of Santa Clara, Associate Planner. The project in front of us today is for a variance to allow 4 separate variances. To allow a reduced rear setback, a reduced landscape planter depth along the street frontage, a reduced required landscape screening depth, and a reduced required tree planter depth. In addition, a conditional use permit is also sought to allow an expansion of an existing service station. So for a brief background on the subject, this item was originally heard at the January 15th, 2025, and after that project went, the commissioners continued it to March 19th in order for staff and the applicant to work on several issues related to noise, landscapes and screening, setback, and hours of operation. The applicant and staff have met to work on the issues, and on February 11th, staff received updated plans that reflect the changes. The site itself is about 0.42 acres and is zoned CN. The site is currently a service station with 6 fuel machines and a small sales kiosk. The variances in front of us are shown here on the screen and the attached site plan. The orange boxes show the reduced landscape planter depth along the street frontages, and the blue box at the bottom of the site plan shows the reduced tree planter, screening planter, and the reduced rear setback. So for a use permit to be approved in the City of Santa Clara per city code, it would have to meet A through E on the screen here. For A, the project is currently not consistent with the general plan. Mainly the policies found in section 5.3.3 that deal with land use conflict outlined in the staff report. B, the project does not currently comply with the zoning code without the variances and the CUP sought. C, the immediately adjacent use to the car wash is a residential complex. The proposed use may not be compatible with that residential use. D, the applicant has worked to reduce the proposed conflict. However, it still may be detrimental to the general welfare of the public who live directly south of the project. And E, the project site is suitable for emergency access, and the site is served by adequate transit corridors. Mitigation measures. The applicant has worked with staff to reduce the potential impacts. For noise, the applicant has done a study to show that the car wash tunnel would exceed the code stated maximum EBAs. However, the applicant has then applied to install noise insulation in the car wash, which will bring it down to a compliant EBA. For landscape and screening, the increased planter depth along the rear of the property will assist with the landscape and screening be viable, as well as It's being able to grow. Next, we have setbacks. The applicant has applied to increase their rear setback by a total of 1 foot. And for hours of operation, the car wash operating hours are to be 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Okay, with all that being said, the staff recommendation is still to deny the variance to allow the reduced rear setbacks, the reduced landscape planter depth along the street frontage, the reduced required landscape screening depth, and the reduced tree planter depth, as well as to deny the conditional use permit to allow an expansion of an existing service station. I'm sorry, to approve the denial, to approve a recommendation.
Denied.
Just 1 second. No, it's.
I think actually you're headed in the right direction. The confusion gets when we have an appeal and then you're sustaining an appeal, which means that no, you can simply say deny the
apologies about
CUP and deny the variance is still staff's recommendation as originally proposed.
Exactly that, and staff is here to answer anything else, and the applicant is here as well. Thank you.
First questions? Any for the staff?
Yeah, so when you brought up through the chair, Priya, when you brought up, go back to the use permit recommendation. So here we are with a variance, right? So this is requirements for a use permit to be approved. What are the conditions for a variance application? Aren't we here for a variance?
Yes, both, yes.
Yeah. So obviously it doesn't meet criteria two. I'd like to know if we have any specific plan in this area. But in general, we are here for the use permit with the variance to some of these.
That's exactly right, and I can bring up those findings on the screen just real quick.
Okay, thank you. While staff is bringing that was my only question.
I got a question, but it's probably going to be
Or while you're looking, we can go ahead with the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the noise level. It says that you're going to install insulation. How would you know that insulation is going to work? How do you know what the noise level is after you install the insulation, since you don't have the car wash and you don't have anything to compare it to? And there's also residential units right behind the car wash. So that's one of my concerns, because you're hoping that it will take care of the problem. But after the car wash is built and everything's completed and the noise level is still there, what are you going to do then?
That's exactly right. So the sound engineer that the applicant hired was the one that performed the study, and to show that the foam sound insulation to be on the inside of the car wash would reduce the general EBAs to below 65, I believe. The applicant may be able to answer that a bit more fully.
And for the second part of the question, if we discover after the fact, after installation of the car wash and all the insulation, that they are still in excess of the code standards, then it becomes a code enforcement matter. They will simply be cited every time there's a complaint, or it could be on a daily basis. We go out there and measure, and it doesn't matter if they have a CUP, they are not permitted to exceed the noise standards of the city code. So they'd simply be repeatedly fined. And that could be a basis for revocation of the CUP as well.
Right, so no problem, and the money's already been spent building the car wash and so on. So I just try to avoid headaches before
But
I come up.
Well, that's up to the,
yeah, it's
That's to the owner or what he wants to do.
through the chair.
yes, go ahead.
But that would be similar to a traffic study that comes with a particular head count of so-and-so, who's keeping track of the traffic that increases. I mean, everything that we do is under the preface that there is an expectation to adhere to known or accepted conditions of approval. Any one of those conditions could be at stake. It could be a building permit, it could be a structural permit, it could be a traffic study.
Usually those kind of things would be triggered by a complaint by a neighbor.
Exactly.
Then they would go out and do a measure, and if it was out of scope or out of spec, it would generate a cited fine until corrected, or a cease operation until corrected. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, my question to staff is actually, I know that station is right by Lawrence Expressway. Do we have any data, how noise by the car on the Lawrence? Does that noise level, how to compare the car washes noise level versus the car on the street? Thank you.
Right, so in the code, we do make a exception that allows the standardization of the EBA to be the overall presence of what is on the street there, not just what we account in the code. So I believe in the code, it says something like for residential, it's supposed to be 55 EBA, and it can't be any higher. However, since Lawrence is higher than that, then the sound engineer was allowed to hike up their normal to 60. I can share with you the sound report in just a second. I do have the variance findings on the screen as well, just in case that is needed. But yes, I can share with you that, and the applicant might be able to explain as well.
Okay, why don't we go back since you have the variance, and then you can move forward to the other question. Go ahead and explain the variance issues.
Thank you. It's helpful to see it, and of course, the application is for both the use permit and the variances. We have how many, one variance application? What's the number of variants?
Right, is one variance for 4 separate code requirements.
Got it, okay. And the 4 are within the 4 categories here, or just the strict compliance with like zoning code requirements?
4 development standards, which they are not complying with, and you need to make all of the findings in order to justify granting a variance for any development standard. Typically, if you can make the findings, they would apply for all of the development standards, because it's usually something about the lot. You know, the lot is very small or a strange size or something like that.
Got it. Understood. Thank you so much for the.
Okay, wait, before we go, are there other gas stations of similar comparison that we could reference as comps? Other gas stations with a car wash, anywhere within the reasonable vicinity, which is one of the criteria.
I mean, the one at Scott, it comes to mind as the one with the car wash that's adjacent to residential multifamily.
Yeah, it's exactly. That one doesn't run.
I think the site's a little bigger on that one, though.
But the issue
site's
with that
pretty
one
small.
is, excuse me, the issue with that one is they don't run the blower to dry their cars.
They
and that's
don't
what makes
anymore.
this one.
They don't anymore.
They don't. At first they did, but they
They
don't.
did.
Yeah.
They do not anymore.
And that's why they stopped doing it, and they do it by hand now.
Yes, correct.
Right. That's
Yes.
the only one around here that I can recall that had that.
Yeah.
We used to have one close right here on Lincoln. There's a car wash.
So the general question is there characteristics of that car wash and that gas station that match the requested characteristics of this property development? Setbacks.
Yeah, I mean, the setback of the car wash at this one at Scott is very close. Yeah, Daniel's zooming in there. The setback is it's not a foot, but it's very close to the multifamily. But, you know, as it was stated, they don't have doors, and the opening faces directly to the multifamily. It's not a side-on, it's a direct opening towards the multifamily. They do have a masonry wall at the property line. They do have a large stand of trees along the property here, where the proposal before you does not. They will be planting, and they have increased their planter at the rear property line as you requested, to allow for some, hopefully.
Excuse me, I recall that we also had, we discussed that they were going to have limited hours of operations too.
They did
shutting down
reduce
at
their
10 o'clock
hours.
or
They did
before.
reduce their hours.
Yeah.
Daniel can.
Right, the hours are now from 6 to 10 instead of 24/7.
6 to 10? I would make it,
AM to 10.
yeah, and I'll make it a little bit later than that because any construction cannot start till 7 o'clock in the morning in the city.
Construction or business
gardeners,
operating
or
hours?
Gardeners, yeah, or gardeners, and it's a business.
Noise production.
Yeah, so I would go to 7 o'clock.
You can suggest that.
Are you
perhaps.
specific to the car wash or to the gas station and convenience store?
To the car wash.
Other questions from the commission?
Thank you.
No? Okay. Well, we can hear from the applicant at this point. If there's additional presentation they'd like to make. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Muthanna Ibrahim. I'm the architect for the project. And we basically have done everything you asked us last meeting, January 15th. We provided a noise report. We hired a noise consultant, and the noise consultant went to the site, examined the existing environment, the noise environment over there, and came up with recommendation. And his recommendation to meet the city standard as far as the noise by installing noise absorbent materials at the interior of the tunnel, up to 75% of the interior, to bring the noise or mitigate the noise to meet the city standard. And we, increased the setback. We added pervious pavers along the drive-through to mitigate the landscape. And, we've done everything that you guys asked, and I'm here to answer any question you might have.
Okay, so having, in your view, performed all of the mitigations, why are we at a disconnect with staff and staff still recommending not to recommend? So that's more of a question for staff. And you guys can perhaps enumerate the things specifically, both done and not done, so that we can understand better why there isn't an approval. That's a direction to the staff to please address individually so that we can understand better why we are at this impasse still.
Right. Just one second while I...
And I would politely request that simply quoting the standards is not going to be helpful to this conversation, because I understand the standards, that's why this is a variance. What part of this variance is egregious enough to deny it?
Sure. So required variance findings, number one, there is no special circumstances on this lot. It meets the minimum lot size for the CN zoning, ipso facto for that one. Number two, strict compliance with the zoning code requirements would deprive the subject property of privileges enjoyed. That's not true. The applicant could, in theory, create a new way to move the car wash around or to switch up how these cars move around this car wash. The applicant spoke to that on January 15th on why, but just wanted to, the city still believes that there is a way to make this work. You could square this building instead of having a trapezoidal building, and that could produce some more room for the car wash or other uses on the lot. Number three, approving the variance would constitute a grant or special privilege, which is inconsistent with the limitations of the property. No other property in or around here has received a variance. There's a 7-Eleven store right next to it. That has not received a variance for any type of car wash structure or, et cetera. And last but not least, sorry, I'm just off the cuff here, but we have researched this. It's just from the January 15th meeting. And the granting of this variance will not adversely affect the interests of the public. As we spoke about on January 15th, the city still does believe that the car wash would be adversely affecting the folks that live behind the structure, the folks that live behind the car wash, which are right here. They do have some outdoor patios right here where my cursor is, so they would be looking out right directly at the car wash. Now, they have increased their setbacks to 3 feet 11 inches for the planter and 1 foot 7 inch for the car wash itself, with planting material to be all throughout this planter, but not in between the wall and the car wash itself. So for those reasons, city staff still do believe that this would be or could be detrimental to the homeowners that live behind. So that's for the variance, and then for the use permit, yes, it does not comply with the general plan or the zoning or the adjacent uses, which, as we can see, are all residential. Sorry, let me bring up this. So residential, mixed use on the top here, and then medium density residential. These are the only two CN properties around.
So how far off, how far from the required setback of the car wash is it currently, given the variance?
I believe that is 10 feet, 10 inches.
And it's currently at 2 feet?
It's currently at 1 foot 7 inch, and it would need to be at 20 feet. So, yes.
Is the setback in consideration of the fact that it's a parking lot? No. So basically, the fact that there's a 20-foot plus parking lot between the car wash and the actual residence is not even being considered in this as a rational point of decision?
It's the same thing as if I believe that somebody would have a 20-foot driveway in front of their house, and then somebody would rev their car outside. That 20-foot driveway, while it does provide some space, you still hear the car that revs outside pretty well.
Did the city have an architect of any qualifications review the plans to see if there were suggested changes that could be made?
So we're doing this analysis based on the zoning code and development standards. So our analysis is not based on supposing or, what's actually on the ground. That's not our purview. Our purview is, does this meet the standard? Is this project special for any reason? That's our analysis. You have very good points about if we're, using common sense on the ground, and that's something that we could put in our analysis, but that's not something that's before us.
I understand. Other questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. The last time you made this presentation, you brought to us a significant number of signatures from residents saying that they think this would be fine and would not bother them, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, for staff, when we talk about if this was to be approved, the variance, the standard would be for the noise to be 65 decibels? Was it 60 or 65?
I'll have to check that just real quick.
Well, okay, let's take 60. That's okay. So basically, what would happen is the owner here would be taking a big bet that if they put in the car wash
55.
and it's 55? I thought it was altered because of the noise
Plus
on
the 5.
Lawrence Expressway.
So 60, yeah. 60.
Okay, 60. So, 60. So if the residence, let's say it was at 50, that's what it came out at. A resident complained at 50, right? Because we approved the variance, it wouldn't matter, correct?
They would still need to meet the noise standard.
Understand. So the noise standard on the variance would be at 60, but if somebody went out there and said, well, we measured it was 50, and a resident was still complaining, then nothing would be done, correct?
Correct.
If it was at 70, we would issue a citation or some kind, whatever, an enforcement code letter. Okay. So your client is taking a big risk if somebody were to complain and the noise was over that, right? So you have every interest in making sure the noise is under the 60 decibels as they're talking about.
Absolutely. That's why we hired the noise consultant.
Okay, the material that they were talking, well, first of all, is there going to be a blower in there?
Yes, that's basically mitigating the noise of the blower.
Okay, and is the material itself, has the staff know what this material is that they're talking about? Is that something that,
Yes, we have a
Part of the
cut
review.
sheet in the noise study that's submitted to the staff.
understand, I want to make sure that you have
Home
seen, okay.
insulation, yeah.
Good, good.
And I put it on the plans, too.
Yes, he did.
Is the material in some way verified or certified to be used in this manner inside a car wash that is very wet and very hot?
Yes, absolutely. We asked this question, and this consultant used it many times in car washes, interior.
Okay. That's my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just to elaborate, for 60 dBA, it's a normal conversation sound level. Just to give you an analogy of how a 60 dBA threshold
Well,
is.
I live near El Camino. I'm not 20 feet from El Camino. I'm a little bit further, and I definitely hear the engines revving at night all the time.
Exactly.
So that being said, yes, I have my understanding of what the decibel level is at times, but thank you.
I think at this point, we're open to public hearing, right?
If there are no further questions to the applicant, yes.
I didn't have any, no. Is there any public that wants to speak on, anyone online or here that would like to speak on this issue?
There's one hand online.
Okay, please go ahead.
iPhone guest, you can unmute and speak.
Yes, my name is Linda. I am a resident and I walk this area often. The comparison to Scott, if you look at Scott, when I looked following you, it looked like there were cars going between the car wash and the residential area. Here, they're right up against the wall between the residential area and the car wash. Is right there. So I think that there will be problems. I think that it is a sunk cost to them, and then they'll get fined a lot. And I understand that they depend on this, but that is still, they're not going to be within compliance of anything. That's all.
Yeah, are we reading that image correctly? Because it looks to me like the path the cars are taking are adjacent to living units, not parking lot. Is that a parking lot on the other side of the fence where the cars
You
are?
pull out. It's adjacent on one
So
side.
that's a
They're
covered
carports.
parking structure, right? Okay,
They're carports.
it is a similar example.
Yeah, you see the two units that make an L
Yeah,
that are right up there, so whoever's on that end is going to potentially get the most noise.
right there where the arrow was there.
Yes.
True. Okay.
Too, that I want to bring up with the proposal right there at the car wash that we're working right now, right next to the 7-Eleven and the same, across from the parking lot, there's townhomes also abutting there, so you're going to be close to the car wash also. Okay, right next to the 7-Eleven, when you come in the parking lot, right to the left, there's townhomes right against it. So there, the only thing separating will be the parking lot from the 7-Eleven. Also, so there's going to be townhomes in there too. So it's just not the ones behind them, it's also going to be up in the front. You can They're right there on the structure, 7-Eleven, and to the right, the townhomes, correct. Those
Are we still on public comment?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any other?
There's no more hands online.
Move to close public.
Well, no, we have to allow a rebuttal. So is there any comments you'd like to make on the one comment we heard?
Regarding the Scott Car Wash is really should not be compared to ours. First of all, the building is an old metal building. If there is any noise, it will be exaggerated inside that metal building. The proposed project is a CMU wall, 8 inches, concrete filled. The roof will be concrete. The tunnel itself will absorb the sound. In addition, we're adding the sound absorbent materials to mitigate the noise. And plus, our project has on the east and on the south masonry wall existing. And that's going to mitigate the noise and the light and everything, separating from the residential. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Should we close public hearing? No, okay, go ahead.
Good evening to all the commissioners, honorable commissioners. So also, this is when we did the noise control, they considered time, daytime noise, not nighttime noise. So that's what this 7 to 10 is the daytime, and you can see the noise coming. Nobody will be sleeping, and noise will be coming more than from Lawrence Expressway, from the car, than our one. And even like this one, I think we are a little more flexible on the hours because it's a daytime operation, and we have last time we said that I'm small business person, and now the electric cars are there, our gas volume is going down, and so we need to survive. And your city, for small business, we need additional resources such as car wash at the store. And we are cutting from this 6 dispenser to 4 dispenser that can also help the environmental too. So my humble request is, please, I have spent a lot of money on this one, hiring the consultant, and we are working with the city for a long time. If you can give us a blessing, we will appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Question for the applicant.
Excuse me, got a question for you. Real quick. If the car wash is approved, are you proceeding in the future having detailing, car detailing too, progressing into that? That's what
Right now, we don't have that thing. This will be just automatic car wash. People just go there, wash their car.
But it's not in your mind and your thoughts that in the future you're going to be doing that then?
In future, if if there were depends on the business. If business is going down, like this one, and so we will consider detailing that one too. That might. And right now we don't have that much space over there for detailing. I don't think we can accommodate that because we have also parking things like this one. I'm saying maybe after 10, 15 years, there is no car things like on the customer. So right now, because we have a tight the parcel, so we are just, that's why we made automatic car wash, not the full-fledged car wash.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The reason that I brought up just for the rest of the commissioners is there's something similar on El Camino and close to Wolf. It's a car wash that in the back that they started doing detail, and they have problems with the residents that also have apartments and so on there. So there's an ongoing battle over there with the residents. So that's why I brought that up, just to, for in the future to proceed, before the problem gets there.
I don't see where it could happen currently.
It could happen.
Okay. Now we can officially close public hearing. So do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Just want to make sure Commissioner Biagini is online if,
Yeah, she has a, yeah.
I'm online. I'm happy to make the motion to close the public.
Okay. I was wondering if you had any
Okay.
questions, but you,
I have a comment, but I'll talk
we'll save
about
it.
that
Okay.
once it's
Thank you.
closed. Yeah.
second, Chair Crew? Or did we get a? Okay.
Commissioner Biagini, are you still alone?
I'm still alone.
That just sounds.
Very good. Go ahead and cast your vote to close public hearing, please.
We can have fun here.
Is there, Xander, is there any variation to that rule that says, can you promise to tell us if it changes? Or is it literally every single vote?
It's one of these laws written probably by a freshman legislator that is not worded terribly well, and it says something like, before you take action at the meeting, you must inform whether or not there is somebody, I think if they'd worded it a little more clearly, like saying, at the beginning of the meeting, comma, before taking any other action, comma, but the way it's worded, it makes it sound like every time you take action, and that is the way
We proceed.
the city council has been interpreting it as well. I think it's important to stay consistent with their procedure.
Would this help if once a motion is made and seconded, I just volunteer, hey, I'm alone?
Yeah, that's fine.
I so appreciate our dialogues, but that would also legally suffice. I don't
Okay, that's
have
good.
to be a part of the process.
I don't mind. I'm alone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, wouldn't you have to say that before?
What was the result? I assume it was a, yeah, okay. So, public hearing is closed, except for questions.
We vote on it?
Yes.
I have a question to staff, just as a comment too. We have a car wash very similar to this on, what's this, Halford? And I want people to
new
just, Halford and El Camino Real, very similar. I just want people to have a perspective of that operation that's coming right next to, of course, right now it's a vacant land, but full-on housing that has much more density and much more intensity of utilization just around it. Now, it could have been both ways. Housing could come later. Like people buy houses next to a quarry. So life always happens, and who comes first, chicken or egg, is always a deliberation. So I just wanted to put that perspective out there of what happens next to you and what happens in front of you is always subject to change. Philosophically. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Then we'll consider it again.
That said, I will say my 2 cents, and then I will let the motion happen, and I'm sure Commissioner Biagini has. I have been to the site, and since our last meeting, and I know at the last meeting we had quite a volume of people, and we asked quite some real, nitpicky almost things that, move a foot, which I don't think you can see from anywhere that they moved a foot or even not. That's to Commissioner Wang's deliberation at the last January meeting, like, really, are we asking for a foot? But they did it. And we are here with still the request, knowing the future and knowing that the interest for gas station is going to be a change. I'm going to just say this out loud to staff. Gas station, while in current era, might come back in the statistics, that is California having significantly much more electric vehicles and several gas stations lying still fallow because Costco is right around the corner, guys. So guess what? Everybody is headed to the lowest, but there has to be a creative opportunity for a business to thrive that's already got a service lane, that has supported a gas transaction that would have had the same deliberation back when it was getting even permitted. Here we are considering almost like a mixed use. if we are allowing mixed uses within residential and retail and commercial and office settings, here is a new world era. Thank you.
I entertain other comments?
Oh, and make a real quick comment here. We'd like to know if we could put like a restriction on it, that there'll be no detailing on that premises at all, and make sure it's from 7 to 10 only.
You could make it an
Amendment, yeah. That's what that's what I request that we would like to do.
Those things are within the commission's power.
Yes, that's what we would like to do that.
Yeah, I prefer keep 6 to 10, at least for the very beginning. If we found the issue, maybe we can ask the owner to reduce hours. You know, it's yeah. So
If you want to make that request part of your
yeah,
friendly amendment to the motion, assuming
Yeah.
there's a motion
yeah,
in favor.
yeah. If no discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
We're saying 6 a.m.?
I'm going to make a comment beforehand, but go ahead, Commissioner Biagini.
Do we need to vote on closing the debate
No,
before we get in?
no. We closed public hearing, so we're,
All right,
this is
all
our,
right, all right, all right. So then I have a comment to make. Let me lower.
go ahead, you're up.
We had such a large discussion upon this matter when it first came up. And while I understand that the city is doing what they're supposed to do, checking the boxes and the like, I'm highly impressed with the applicant doing everything that we asked them to do. I can't, unless one of my fellow commissioners can remind me of something they didn't do. Seems to me they did it all, and they did it all with quite a bit of thought. And under the circumstances, frankly, I think we should allow. So that's all.
Your turn? No, anyone? No? Okay. I'll make a comment then, too. One of the comments I heard from staff was that the suggestion that the convenience store could be reoriented in its dimensions to a more rectilinear. I sat down and put together some boxes on a piece of paper I printed out. The way that convenience store is configured allows for storage in the back corner. That is one of the requirements. I tried to find a way to make it a box and have some reasonable amount of storage, thinking like an architect. I mean, I've thrown this down every now and then. I'm a graduate architect. I know how things get put together. I understand site plans, and I understand how this configuration was put together. And I do remember from the previous conversations that we had requirements for gas delivery, ingress, egress that was required, the emergency access, all these other criteria moving into the equation to balance out that site plan. And it genuinely tends to fall into this exact configuration. I could not find a better one, simply because the car wash must be away from, it can't be at street side, it must be in the back. It's adjacent to a parking lot. The amount of noise and disturbance to the neighbor is going to be minimal compared to the actual distance it will be from a resident's home, even with a patio. I didn't find logical, I understand the hard rules, but I didn't find logic to sustain them in this example. Common sense, other aspects that go into making this kind of a decision would permit it to exist. So I will be also in favor of it. And let's hopefully have a motion.
Yeah, I'm ready to make a motion to approve the variance.
May I help guide the commission?
Sure.
Chair. The staff's recommendation, as you know, was denial. No CEQA action is necessary for a denial. If the commission is inclined to approve this request, then the first action you would need to take would be to find the project to be categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to Class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures. So an appropriate motion would be, make a motion to find the project to be exempt from CEQA under Class 3.
I move that we find the project exempt from categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to small new construction or small expansions.
Second.
Communication lag time over the internet.
Okay. The motion was made by Commissioner Cherukuru, seconded by, whoops, got that wrong there, by Commissioner Biagini. Or are you the seconder? Oh, okay. Okay, let's change that.
Is the motion okay?
Seconded by Commissioner Boza. Find the project to be exempt from CEQA. Go ahead and cast your vote, please.
I assume Commissioner Biagini is alone?
I am alone and I'm casting a yes vote.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, great. The motion passed. Thank you.
The next appropriate motion would be a motion on either the CUP or the variance. I should just inform, I stand corrected. The next appropriate motion would be a motion on the variance, but I have to inform the commission, we have no conditions of approval here, and we have no resolutions with findings. So if the commission ends up approving the variance in the CUP tonight, what we'll do is we'll bring back resolutions memorializing your action at the next meeting. We'll put it on consent calendar. There'll be no additional public testimony, but we'll have the two resolutions and the conditions of approval, the standard conditions of approval attached.
Okay.
Just so you understand the sort of the process. But yeah, a motion to approve the variance would be in order if that is the commission's pleasure.
Would we still be taking the motion then with the consent calendar along the same lines? Like, won't we, in essence, the consent calendar is approving the variance, right? So with the whole bags.
You're approving the variance tonight and the CUP tonight. The only action you would take, the next one, is to approve the resolution memorializing it and confirming that the findings that we come up with over the next few weeks are consistent with your understanding based on the testimony we've heard from you all tonight.
Got it. So it would be appropriate to add at least one. I would be still open to not the second, the 6 a.m. to 10 being the operation, but I am open to the condition of approval to add no detailing.
No detailing.
Which would be for the CUP. That would be a good thing to attach to the CUP motion.
Okay.
And I think the request is that you do the variance motion first.
Okay, then I just move, yeah,
Exactly. Go.
yeah, to approve the variance. Thank you.
Second.
One second, sorry. The motion was made by Commissioner Wang, seconded by Commissioner Boza, to approve the variance. And is this where we put in the conditions of approval and resolutions being brought back to the next meeting? At this motion here?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, go ahead and cast your vote, please.
With Commissioner Biagini being alone.
I am still alone and I am casting a yes vote.
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes,
Crutchlow?
I'll just be the voice of being alone.
Thank you. We have a unanimous yes vote. Thank you.
So we have the final motion, which is the CP.
The CUP with additional conditions. at the-
Boozer, do you want to go?
You can go ahead. I'm answering Nancy. Go ahead.
I move that we recommend approval of a CUP with the additional condition of no expansion to services such as detailing. I'm just putting a blanket, no expansion to services without it being brought back.
That might be too restrictive.
No, beyond what the application has.
I'm sorry, too restrictive in the sense of being too broad.
No,
It's very broad.
included, okay.
It's very broad. I think you should try and be If it's going to be detailing,
Oh, I see.
you should be focusing.
No detailing permitted with this current approval? Isn't that the application anyway?
That's the application, so no,
Yeah,
so you don't need to include that in your motion because that's the application.
yeah.
But we will add a condition, providing that the applicant shall not add any detailing services to the business.
Second?
And if Commissioner Biagini is alone, she can enter her vote when
I
it
am.
pops.
So the motion was made by Commissioner Chair Kuru, seconded by Commissioner Crutchlow. This is to approve the CUP, is that what we said?
Yes, conditional use
With
permit.
additional condition of no detail services permitted, and hours of operation are not going to go in this motion, is that
They're
correct?
not a part of this motion.
Got it, thank you.
Simply be reflected.
Got it. Go ahead and cast your vote, please.
I'm a yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Yes.
thank you. And the motion passed unanimously, thank you.
And just for the benefit of the public and the applicant, so you understand what is happening, this is a decision of the Planning Commission at the conclusion of the public hearing. The public hearing will not be reopened. However, 2 resolutions reflecting the Planning Commission's action will be brought back on April 16th, and the Planning Commission will simply verify that those resolutions reflect the Planning Commission's decision tonight. If any person is dissatisfied with the decision tonight, there is a 7-day period to appeal this decision to the City Council. However, that appeal period does not begin until after the Planning Commission adopts the resolutions at the April 16th meeting. So the opportunity to file an appeal will begin on April 17th for 7 days.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I hope there wasn't harsh feelings for staff on this. It's just a consideration that is our perspective from being commissioners.
And from the staff's perspective, we appreciate the opportunity to be able to draft these findings over the next few weeks rather than have to write them all right now. So thank you.
You're welcome.
We appreciate that too, that you don't have to do it right now.
And congratulations to the applicant. You recognize that this is not a norm, it is an anomaly. We are grateful for your services to the community, and we hope this benefits to you to continue to thrive.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, I
Best
don't
of
think
luck.
you can break ground until all of this is filed and fully approved, but thank you.
Yeah. that's-
Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to item 4, which is guaranteed to fill the rest of our time. Planning Commission discussion on questions for a future study session on data centers. Does anybody need a short break, or are we good to go? I don't know, it's only 7 o'clock, so we should hopefully be good to go. Is there a procedural process that you think would be helpful for us as a staff member to help get this information conveyed in a way that you can capture and isolate?
I'm just going to be typing as you talk, so if there's something specific you want to make sure I highlight and get, call it out. But I'm gonna be typing as you talk, so.
And now we have a new head of the Silicon Valley Power, too.
Yeah.
Penella departed.
Yeah.
Is there a representative from Silicon Valley Power that you
I'm
have?
assuming they're going to appoint somebody acting, but I actually haven't.
Well, the city
No, no, I
manager,
mean,
our
is there
city
gonna be
manager is
somebody
acting
that-
right now.
Today?
No, not now. Is there somebody considered to be the one giving us a presentation when this happens? Is there
yes,
a
there will
person
be-
lined up?
Yes, there will be someone else.
Okay, good. Because, yeah, otherwise this kind of floats around indefinitely. So,
Yes.
Mr. After TBD, yeah. Does anybody want to get started? Because I've submitted a set of questions, and did you put those on a slide form, or could you share the email maybe? 'Cause
Yeah, I can share those, yeah.
That would give some conversation points, and then others can hopefully add. Has
By the way,
anybody
they are now going to start calling some of these places not data centers, but AI factories. That is the new term.
else- Yeah, it is the catchphrase, right?
Will our zoning code pick that up?
I-
They will not be a data center, therefore they're an AI factory, and they're not,
Allowed under use.
well, no, they're exempt because no one has said anything about an AI factory.
So then we should be charging them because they're AI factory. Factory means that you're manufacturing stuff.
They are.
So we should
They're
be
manufacturing
charging.
tokens.
Yeah, and the business
You know what
license, we
tokens
should
are?
change it. We should change it to anything that's manufactured like that, over $100,000, $200,000.
Well, needless to say, I think for our purposes, anybody that uses compute, regardless of what they want to call it, with that many megawatts, it's a data center.
If in the unlikely event someone snookered us into thinking it wasn't a data center and it's not listed in our code, our new zoning code does have language saying if it's something we haven't contemplated, then the planning commission will consider whether or not it is appropriate. So they need a CUP at the very least if it was a non-data center weird thing.
Well, here's a good way to measure that, and maybe this is a good point to bring up. How much power does a company want to use for what they may either call an internal usage of a lab, or if they are going to offer services for sale to other people? Either one of those, to me, could come under a data center, depending on usage. So, for example, there's an empty building, the old Palo Alto Networks building. That, I'm going to take a big guess and say they have a lot of power there. And they also probably have a lot of data connectivity to the internet because of what they did, and they called it a lab. And somebody with some of the newer gear that's coming out, and I was at the conference yesterday, they're talking about a 40x improvement in what they can do with GPUs with the current chips they are manufacturing. So it's a huge improvement, but there's also a huge need. Needless to say, I can see where somebody could say, well, I can't put a data center in there, but I'll go, lease the old building and start throwing all that stuff in there. So I think part of it's going to be, we should be careful what we consider a data center, because people will find loopholes and we want to cover them ahead of the time. So if somebody says, yes, I'm going to use Palo Alto building, I'm not going to put many people there, but it's only an office building, not a data center, yet I'm still going to want, 2 megawatts of power going to there, so thank you. So I think we should make a consideration, what do we measure things on that we define as a data center versus what somebody else might define as a data center?
So basically redefine data centers.
Redefine data centers, there's also standards for them.
Yeah, and get standards.
From the National Institute of Science and Technology, NIST.
Yeah.
NEC has a standard for it. So I think when we look at the staff, for your benefit, that would be one of the areas that I would look at. How much voltage do they want? That's going to be, let's say, a litmus test initially. But like, for example, how much power does NVIDIA at their corporate headquarters use right now? Because I know they've got a bunch of labs there.
You got other data centers. You got data centers everywhere.
Well, there's a difference. They do have, in fact, data centers, but there's a difference between a data center and then having, here's our headquarter office,
Yeah.
and we have a lab, and the lab just happens to use 1 megawatt of power.
I know what you're saying. Well, one of my concerns too that you brought up, you were just talking about, is they, like digital realty, they sell to different companies. So one building could have, like 3 different things. And what they're doing is they're buying the stuff from us and selling it at a retail price. And in the middle, we're getting the shaft. And this is what I do not, it's hard to swallow. You're leaving lots and lots of money on the table, and these guys are reaming us big time. I'm not against, AI or anything like that. I just don't want to get reamed and make us look stupid.
Commissioner Yash Bhatnagar.
That's okay, that's okay.
Yes, please, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. So, you know, we've had these types of projects come to us several times. Some we have denied, and then they got approved at the council anyways. In any case, what I'm trying to do here is maybe step back a little bit and ask ourselves, what are the two big things that is of interest to the Planning Commission from the responsibilities that we bear? So, you know, and what has been of interest to us? So one is land use. So in the discussions that have come about, the facts that well over 50% of the state capacity today, or state capacity of data centers, is actually in the city of Santa Clara. It's a massive statistic that bears attention, right? Tiny little city, 19.5 square miles in the state of California is bearing that burden for data centers. So the question before us is that an appropriate use of land in our city to that extent, and how we align it? And so that's something that we should think about asking and answering and legislating, right?
And we all agreed that that's the main things. We have 3, 4, perhaps 5, perhaps 6. There was, you know, there are 7, but that we agreed on that. And the thing that really gets to me is there's one district that's absorbing most of that, and that's District 2 in Santa Clara. Yeah. And the thing that I'm really surprised, how could the council been asleep at the wheel when all of this was happening?
Right.
Okay?
So
and that's what
let's
really
focus.
hurts the most.
It's only questions to staff.
This is less,
So
this is less a session about grievances and more a session
Right.
about actions that we want to understand and futures that the city is
We do
pursuing.
want to understand how that came about,
Right.
so we don't make decisions.
No, good points, good points. So in other words, the ask for staff and council will be to effectively legislate that, you know, we are going to allow a maximum of this percentages of a district or our city to be occupied by these structures, and after that, they fight amongst themselves for a site. Right? Let the price dictate.
Well,
right?
you know, let's in terms of coming up with questions,
Yes.
what I would say, I think you're making a good point.
Yeah, just-
But I think we have to be careful how we ask that question, because we're also making it,
Sure.
like, this is our feelings about data centers in general, and I don't know what latitude.
Sure.
So if I may, to our lawyer, Xander? To what latitude do we have to, in asking these questions, bring in things like, just, is it desirable for the people of Santa Clara to want to have data centers here?
That's a request for a judgment.
I understand that. That's the reason I bring up that
I'll put
question.
it
That's
more
why
philo-
I'm asking the lawyer.
Yeah, I can help, and I'm sorry, just ready with the questions that address exactly that. So I'm not trying to, it's a policy and a regulation question, but through the chair again, I'm more than happy to send it to you because this is very specific to what. Yeah. So first one would be under the category of energy and infrastructure capacity. All those questions that Commissioner Salim had would be pertinent in more summarized way. How much additional electricity demand can our grid support? I'll send it to you. You don't have to type it out. What is the current strain on our existing substations and transmission lines? Are there future planned grids or alternative energy solutions that the city is looking to? Example, microgrids or renewables, or even biocells? And can new data centers be required to use energy-efficient cooling, AI-driven load balancing, or battery storage? Okay, so this, again, I'm going to use my extra artificial intelligence here.
Using ChatGPT in one of our data centers.
Good for you. Renewable and alternate energy integration. That's the reason I had 60 in my already city. I have the right to. Okay, so can new data centers be mandated to purchase renewable energy or generate their own on-site? So this is alternate energy, and I think Commissioner Salam also had the same. And then are there incentives or policies that we can use to encourage green data centers? So also, can we mandate demand response to reduce peak load stress on our infrastructure? To the question which I was really rearing to come to, economic and strategic justification for City of Santa Clara. Does our city need more data centers? Or is there a saturation point where diminishing returns occur? Are these centers creating enough economic benefits, aka jobs, revenue, technological innovation, to justify their energy consumption? And what industries in general are driving the demand beyond NVIDIA and ServiceNow and, of course, AI? Are there other industries or sectors that are driving the demand for more data centers?
I'm just curious, what is that going to answer for you?
So if you say retail is now getting into a whole hoteling industry is using more, AI, it's not just then technology companies. Now we have other sectors that are basically becoming much more intensive users of AI that basically is requiring more data centers.
Even restaurants are using AI.
They do. I'll give you one example that Jensen gave. For me, I had a good laugh at it. Using AI to be the voice when you go through a drive-through.
Yeah, I was just saying.
And I'm sitting here thinking, like, really? That's what we're working on, is making it easier to not hire somebody at the drive-through? Okay.
In context, I just want you to know, one ChatGPT question like this requires 100 gallons of water in its energy. Just one question generation.
Let me
I'd like to see the statistic.
Let me bring one.
Let's take it.
But let's go back to the questions.
Let me finish again. I'll try to get through this. Environmental and community input and impact. How will the additional data centers impact our local city from an emission standpoint, noise and heat generation? Can the waste heat that is generated from these high energy facilities be repurposed so they have a whole system of recooling or gathering the heat to get more thermal energy out for energy itself from a sustainability standpoint? And what impact will increase the power usage have on our residential and commercial electricity costs? That's our Commissioner Booza's question.
Yeah.
Policy. Should new permits be contingent on energy efficiency commitments and infrastructure investments? Should we have a policy that guides these kind of data centers? Are our current zoning laws or ordinances that need revision based on nuclear power, AI reclassification, names that will be thrown at us that we don't even know for the future demand and density within existing data centers? Can the city enforce limits on speculative land banking for data centers? This is one of the hottest real estate commercial markets where everybody is hedging on betting a data center as their future portfolio in a real estate strategy. So they may be land banking for data centers to do this. And then risk management. What contingency plans exist if our electricity demand surpasses our available supply?
If Leslie managed to capture that.
No, I'm sending it over. I'm reading it
Okay,
only for the
I was
record.
gonna say,
I'm
right
sorry.
now.
I never expected, I told them up front, no.
No, I'm not typing all that, 'cause
No.
you said you're sending it, I'm just.
I am sending it over. And then, are there backup systems for the city itself? And then how will cybersecurity and physical security measures evolve with these additional measures? Thank you for your time. I appreciate the ChatGPT version.
Yeah, I got a couple things really quick. Go to the Winter Schnitzel on Saratoga Avenue and go to the drive-through. They're already using it. It's a riot. But one of the things that you mentioned is the noise level. The noise level is it's bad. It sounds like a freight train going through. I went to the next to the one we said that we didn't want to have built, the one on Bowers, there's one right next to that one. And I went to it just happened to be at the time when they were running the thing. It sounds like you have the Amtrak trains running through it constantly. And you can smell, I went to the one on Matthews, and you can smell the diesel fumes from the generators. So they were testing the generators. So that is something that we're getting they gave us a snow job on that one there. And I agree with what you had to say. You just, all the stuff that you brought it up. But you answered, some of the questions have been answered already. But the real estate is the big one. They're buying just for that, to get approval. And I hope our city government gets wise to that.
So, Chair, maybe I want to add just one more second point that I was going to make earlier.
Because mine's going to be hard, so I'm going to save it.
Okay, good. The other point, which also has been raised several times here, and in fact, we've already now gone through this motion of increases in Silicon Valley power capacity to support data centers being driven to be funded by City of Santa Clara residents. So we are already now being charged a higher rate, which the city eventually approves, right? So that's an issue. The other statistic that stands out is, and it was mentioned at this meeting sometime, something like 98% of the power from Silicon Valley power is used by these outfits. And
No. 92%, and that includes everybody that's industrial, like light industry.
Okay, fair
It's
enough.
not just data center, but
Yeah.
maybe staff could provide.
Of that 92%,
Yes.
99% is data centers.
Yeah, okay.
Can staff, well, first of all, before.
Yes.
Let's get the
Yes,
data, but.
That's a good question to have,
yeah,
yes.
That's a good question to ask.
It's question one.
That's a good question to ask.
And may
But-
I add one thing to that real quick? When you do that, we also have to take into consideration the limitations that the city has by charter of what we can charge through Silicon Valley Power, because we can only get 5% profit, quote unquote. So whatever limitations they have in that charter, we should also be made aware of, because that
Yeah.
will affect it too.
Yeah, understand. No, but what I'm saying is the big consumers should be paying. Why are the residents paying for this, right? So. Yeah, so I mean, it was covered in your the ChatGPT things that came up, but
Okay,
this is
so-
a specific one, right?
Yeah.
I am unhappy personally that I have to pay for all those big guys running those big data centers down the road, right?
So what I would suggest with that, to go along with that, is it's not just the City of Santa Clara charter, it is also the state of California that tells us what we can and can't do as well. And I absolutely agree with you that needs to be changed, but I think we need some, when we ask those questions, we'll need some feedback about, what our limitations are, what we can and can't do. I know you were going to ask a question, but I have
Yes.
questions too, so but go ahead.
I've
You haven't
saved
gotten
it
any.
because I needed to ask for a clarification that depends on Commissioner Crutchlow's input. How can we remove the label data center from what we are speaking about? Because in actual fact, we're concerned about businesses in general that use a large amount of kilowatt hour per square foot. So rather than just say data centers, we should be speaking about large commercial uses of our power. And that includes, unfortunately, probably NVIDIA and some others, but how do we step back from the idea of just data centers as a concern? Our concern is broader than that. It's the use of Silicon Valley power to drive a business at the rates that residents pay, but using a disproportionate amount of the capacity to drive their business.
Well, I would suggest that we come up with some kind of metric saying, hey, look, if you're going to use this much power, and it's for the purpose of driving compute, then you're going to be considered a data center. It's like the way that I have a private driver's license, right? But if I go out for hire, I actually have to get a different class of license to do that. And I would think along that line. So that way what would happen is it's not just data centers that saying, hey, this is the only thing we do. It would be companies that are large enough that are going to consume a threshold of power. Says, yep, you are now got a data center in your office. That's great. But now you have to be, assessed based on the regulations and stuff that we have for data centers. That's
Just a little
reasonable.
caveat to that. The distinction between data center and an NVIDIA company, one is a dead space, the other is a job generating.
So
Land
that brings in the
Very
metric of,
distinct land use, where one is just hoarding up land with no ability around it beyond consuming data and supporting a AI industry, versus an NVIDIA that actually provides jobs and infrastructure, hotels, retail. It brings everything else to it. I would defend companies against that categorization.
that's why I
And that
brought
was the
this
intent,
question.
yeah.
That's why I brought this question up, because it's not a two-dimensional question, it's a three-dimensional. There's the size of the facility, there's the power usage, and there's the number of people being served, or employees, residents, the people involved in the business. Because you could have a 45-acre business that is consuming a lot of energy. It's not a data center, it's a place that all these people
So we have a lab
and work.
at a company, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about the number of people. One of the things that every time I worked at a place where we had a lab, it was very restrictive who could go in there.
Yeah.
And who could use it. So when you talk about the number of people using it, if you brought that in as a dimension, be careful. I think it makes sense, but I would also want to be careful about that. I think
That's what I'm saying. If it's low job profiled
Yeah.
and is high data center oriented, I mean, even in a data center, there are 10 people walking in and out, like a cybersecurity facility. Probably like an FBI facility. right? But okay.
Okay, Sandra's
Mr.
gonna jump
Chair,
in and-
I just thought it might be instructive if I give you the current definition of data center and ancillary data center in our code.
Oh, thank you.
Neither is very long. A data center is a facility that is very limited in the number of on-site staff and contains a large number of networked computer servers typically used by businesses and organizations for remote storage and distribution of large amounts of data. Also includes data warehouses. And then ancillary data center, the definition is very similar, but it's a facility of network computer servers for private use by an industrial user and subordinate and accessory to the primary use. Ancillary data centers are limited to 20% of the building square footage on a site and a maximum power draw of 9 megawatts.
Breaking it already.
You said that
So
was a
you've
short one.
You've got a part of it, but I worked at Cisco for 7 years. We had entire floors of buildings that were devoted to systems, electronics, right? None of those would be considered networked remotely. They were the isolated labs, card key entry. They were air-gapped, in fact, to prevent people from getting into those systems. But the total power capacity was staggering. They suck power like crazy. So they could loophole it out if we aren't careful about how we specifically define the drain on the power systems that we're providing as the criteria for deciding what form of
Well, we could
customer they are.
we might even have something separate saying for getting data centers in general. If you as a business have a very large amount of electricity need per square foot,
Yeah.
there you go. But also,
why I said
Xander, I would say the one thing that caught my eye is when you said storage, for remote storage. If I were very scrupulous, I would wind up saying, I'm going to have my AI factory, which I'm not really storing stuff there, I'm just computing things. And so therefore, I am not under your code of being a data center. So I think we have to look at that and make sure that we're not kind of hamstringing
Even
ourselves into a
ourselves,
very
yeah.
specific definition of what a data center is.
No, that's with a pen stand.
There are data centers that do storage, but there are definitely data centers that are going to be nothing but, I'm going to compute AI tokens and do my thing, and I'm not really storing this stuff in a way that people are traditionally thinking of that.
So may I add, I think Commissioner Salem's ideas are really useful to think about here. So stop talking about any kind of terminology called AI, warehouse or just go by the metrics. If you're using that many kilowatt hours per square foot, if you have only that many employees per square foot. So come up with some thresholds plus some tolerances around that so that we can have some wiggle room. But those would be the metrics that would say you are in our purview or you are out of that purview. Don't care what you call it. You can call it a pawn shop if you like.
Before we leap past this, the whole conversation has to boil down to what is the objective of categorizing? Are we, as a city, going to continue to have one size fits all for our power? Or are we going to introduce, for the benefit of the residents, a tiered approach?
Yes.
And that tiered approach is totally, I guess, in the hands of Silicon Valley Power and the council.
And the state.
No,
The state has
requesting
regulations
the
about
power.
what we can do, in Silicon Valley Power, and how we can charge for it.
The only way, the way that I'm looking at this as a business venture type of thing, the one that we can change and we have control is our business license, how we license the data center. We don't have to ask the state how to do it or anything else. We can license it on how much wattage they're using and also how many square feet they're occupying, and also what the damage to the environment that they're causing is to. So we can go ahead and change the perception of our business license to accommodate that. Because right now, when you get a Santa Clara business license, it goes by how many, you have how many employees you have. So that's what you pay your business license on. So these guys will pay, they're probably paying less than I was paying with my small business that I had. And it's really, it's a joke. It's a complete a joke for our city.
the outrage.
That's outrage, but that's not a question that we want to ask for this.
I know, but how can we change our, their business? And the data center, the only time you come in here, jobs that create jobs.
We can't have it this wide.
No, you can't. The only jobs that they're creating is when they're building the building that you can see all the union guys come, oh yeah, this is great for us because we're going to create. Yeah, after you build it, what's there? Nothing.
Okay, we have one study session that we're trying to do, and everything you said is valid.
Yeah.
But we have to focus.
Yeah, like the focus is, what are you doing for us and why should we have you
I don't disagree with you, but that's something we also should have with city council.
Yeah.
A fundamental question that can get answered by staff.
Yes.
Is what are the throttles that we have? What are the measures of control that we as a city and as a council and as a commission can apply to the applicants?
Perfect.
To bring the appeal of our city as a data center hub down and not make it such a massively appealing place to go. And the only thing I have always heard about was price of power, but maybe there's other criteria.
Let's leave it open because I think, look, if there's a way that we can accommodate these data centers that makes sense, let's open ourselves to the idea. Right now, we're seeing that the way we've done it doesn't fit, and we need to change it.
Have a master plan. I also want to put a blanket, wet blanket on, considering the current executive orders, Starlink, $500 billion in play, billion, whatever. There could be the state again saying, you don't have a right to say anything, just like housing. So let's brace ourselves for that headwinds that probably will come, that data centers are a requirement, like FCC negates any ability for jurisdiction discretionary approvals. The only caveat I would say we can put our due faith effort in is to say we as a city have a more than 60 live data centers. Should we have a moratorium in place to support this level of discussion and wait for the headwinds to either challenge us or change it? So study session question, what are the headwinds looking like?
Yeah, I would also suggest you take a look at what happened to Carmel when
a
certain actor, Clint Eastwood, became mayor because somebody didn't like ice cream stores. We have to make sure that we aren't doing something along that line. But let me get, if I may, some really specific questions that I'd like to, real questions, okay? Safety, okay? So what are the plans that Silicon Valley Power has put in to ensure that data centers don't disrupt the overall power? So like circuit breakers, if something goes on there, I mean, they use a lot of DC power, and that affects every HVAC motor nearby it potentially. So how are these data centers making sure that the power that they use is not all of a sudden going to be used in a way that will cause damage to the local residents through DC issues and interference? If something happens within the data center itself and they have to be isolated, what's going on? How is Silicon Valley Power measuring this currently to make sure that nothing is going wrong with the power at a data center and that it will affect the grid in some way? So, the standard is that you have two different sources of power coming in. I don't know if that's there. You have also two sources of internet coming in, but yeah, I don't think we have to worry so much about that. But the power especially, how is that grid being operated? What else? The diesel generators and such. One of my concerns has been that everyone that we have looked at on the CEQA has said there's a standard for how much can be put into the air, and it uses a model that doesn't reflect our environment. We're in a valley. The model was not in a valley as I understood when I read the CEQA stuff. So if we could get data where we said, given all the data centers that we have, given the theoretical output, if they all had to use the diesel generators, how much is being put into the air, and in sum, is that over any particular standard? So, for example, the way I was thinking about, like when we had the earthquake back in '87, and things were down for maybe several days, if they had to run for even 10 hours, if you had 60 data centers running for 10 hours, how much in aggregate would that put out? And to what detriment might that be for us, especially if we add more data centers?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Commissioner. We don't typically look at emergency situations when we do our CEQA documents. So you'd be asking us to sort of dig a little deeper than we usually do.
That would be good. And I will tell you, in '87, when I was doing some co-location myself, I actually had a battery backup, which was unusual compared to everybody else. And this was over by the Intel Corporation. There was a building there. Here's the beauty. They had a diesel generator. Everybody else lost all their stuff on their computers, and I didn't. Why? They forgot to put oil in the diesel generator. So they had no problem with pollution. Needless to say, I don't think these data centers are going to be like that. I think they're going to be a little bit more. And the same thing with if we look at the, how often or what do we do in terms of making sure that they comply to the noise levels that they were approved by? Do we wait for residents or somebody to complain? Or can we actually say, hey, the next time you test it, we're coming out, we want your schedule, and we come out and we're going to measure the noise volume? I think that would be, I know we're not doing it now, if we could, is it something that we legally could do?
I think we could do it. I think it's more a question of funding. I mean, maybe if we created a fee for the periodic noise checks that we somehow attach to the approvals, it's an interesting idea. I know that right now we probably don't have the budget for it.
We'll throw it as a question.
Yeah.
And then discuss, what's the possibility, what's the likely, how would you say it, the reasonableness, the reality of can we really do that and does it make sense? Because I think given what, Commissioner Mario over there said about the noise at the Home Depot one, it would be nice to make sure these guys are, in fact, doing what they said they would.
One thing when Commissioner Eric brought up was the pollution. One thing that we have to consider too is Silicon Valley Power, our power plant is running at full capacity right now, and we burn gas, natural gas, and that's one of the highest polluters right now in the state of that runs the natural gas. So not only are they making us, they're that in itself is determined to the environment, and we're supposed to be a green city. We were all going through solar panels and green energy and all this, and all of a sudden, here we are burning natural gas like it's going out of style.
Yeah, well, let's make it.
But that's part of the,
let's
that's part
understand.
of the data centers.
Yeah, but let's understand. There's no way you're going to get green,
No,
like
I
solar,
agree.
the rest of it to
No, I agree
provide
that.
this.
I'm 100% on that.
You
I
know,
don't believe in that at all.
that's the realism.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay,
unfortunately.
two more areas in addition. Where will all the dead servers go in landfill? If there is a recycling facility?
Oh, yeah, it's called eBay.
Sure. But
No,
it is.
I'm totally serious.
No, that
So
is, that's
what winds up happening is these are either certified for somewhere between 3 to 7 years, especially at the cost of some of these devices. I mean, they're friggin' huge.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what people do is they sell them. Like right now, I can go buy a ton of stuff that's been unracked. Now, one of the things that is happening is some of the new equipment that's there, it's literally the entire rack, which weighs 3,000 pounds, and nobody's buying that on eBay.
Yeah.
So it is a very good question.
Where are they going to dispose all of these that are not being used, or the batteries that are, wherever that?
That would
Batteries is
fall into
different,
a
but-
CEQA question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, and then what is the water utilization for the exhaustive cooling that is necessary? What does it draw? Not just like we've been harping definitely on the electricity grid, but what about our water sources? And as we all recognize, we are one of those few, I mean, California is a drought-ridden state, but we have very limited resources.
I would add to that, because you're hitting on the right things, that plus how efficient are the devices that they have inside the data center in terms of that. And
Yeah.
I will tell you, the number one thing that they talk about, and Jensen brought it up as well, electricity is the number one problem.
Right.
So they're doing everything they can to reduce the electrical need, to cool it better, to use different technology that doesn't have the same heating issues and problems. So that's coming, but I think our guidance for staff, when we come up with some regulations, whatever, needs to incorporate that, hey, you are in fact meeting these standards and such, and that would be part of our code.
Yeah, so water consumption, electricity, definitely land use and landfill. Pollution, diesel, I think generally everything that is coming under CEQA almost comes into play.
So on the topic of diesel, Commissioner Krishna brought out a nice, hypothetical example when we have an emergency, but we don't have to wait for an emergency. It's in all of our documents that are presented to us. These emergency generators are being tested every month, 100 megawatts per site, and tested for about an hour, if I remember correctly, for operation. So if you have 60 of those and you only have 12 months in a year, so they're testing, let's say 500 megawatts of diesel is burning for an hour total, right?
Times number of
Yeah,
diesel.
just throwing it up in the air and for us to breathe. And Commissioner Booza already smelt it, right?
Pass this on?
So that's.
You can,
that-
yes.
Again, we can maybe limit, the point was already raised. Can we, as a city, mandate non-polluting uses for non-polluting sources for these emergency power needs, like fuel cells and others, right? That they might, or solar powered, or whatever that we might be able to mandate, so that we get rid of this pollution part. Anyway, I stopped there.
Well, also recognize that the city council is talking to them of the ability for them to run a bunch of generators and actually give us electricity in an emergency as well. So there's two sides to that coin that we should look at.
Wow, this was more than what we thought.
Excuse me, I did want to announce Commissioner Biagini has left the meeting at 7:45 PM.
Yeah.
Good. But Commissioner Priya has actually driven the conversation into to the next question, which I didn't have a chance to put up there. It is for staff to inform us, what is the city's current plan for infrastructure improvement to address the increased capacity required by continuing to have additional data centers? Do we have plans for power line right-of-ways? Do we have plans for additional water? The other parts of the city that need to improve and increase to supply these data centers sufficiently. That's really just a general question for, I guess, the general plan.
Well, I would add to that too is, when I look at my backyard and the wiring on there, most of the insulation's off.
Yeah, the squirrels go crazy out there.
Yeah, and I would like to know what are the roadmap plans for making sure that they're maintaining the residents.
Yeah.
And that we're not prioritizing just industry.
So the corollary to my question about infrastructure improvement is who's paying for it? Are we expecting all residents through property tax to pay for the improvement to the infrastructure to make certain that we have sufficient for data centers, which is not something the residents had necessarily bought into? So I'm sorry that we talk about the money side of things, and it's not really in our wheelhouse to discuss the money.
It's a study session, we just need to understand.
It's a study session, though, and I'm hoping that we can at least get some answers on record that can point to for.
So if it's any help
Money is what attracts the citizens.
for the study session, they don't need to come prepared with any level of presentation beyond just answering all these questions. I think we'd be well into days if they just decided to answer the questions we posed.
Yeah, this is.
I think it's almost going to be like, this is an initial study session just to come up with the questions that we really need to answer. And that might very well be true.
Yeah, we may want a subsequent session. Because what are we scheduling it for? I assume it's not going to, I assume it's at least an hour, perhaps a little longer, because this is not going to, you're going to need
Only an hour?
more than an hour. Yeah, considerably. And it's not supposed to be the Nuremberg trials. This is just a conversation so that we can understand better how we can serve the community by making sure that the residents get their benefit from all of the supply of infrastructure that we're giving, as a city. We don't want it to be.
As long as it benefits everybody, that's the key. And right now, there are obviously things that we don't see it benefiting. So when we talk about asking these questions, is anybody from like that data center association that I mentioned, anybody that would be available to come and talk about it from that standpoint?
As of right now, we do not have anybody.
Okay.
It's crazy. Nobody's volunteering for that.
We're still planning it, so.
I think you'll have to innovate a robot to answer all these questions for at this moment.
I have two people from electrical that I can give you their names, and they've worked on these data centers before. Schneider is probably the biggest one that's well-known in the valley for doing data centers. They may have a representative they could offer, but the Data Center Association should be, or, hey, I can go talk to my buddy Jensen, see what he says.
I would balance it out with somebody from a sustainability standpoint, because these are people, are vested people.
It's nice to see that we all agree on something.
Oh, trust me.
Compatible.
Trust me, there will be somebody who's on the other side. That's what I'm saying. It has to be balanced from a
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not meaning
No,
to
no, no.
don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. No, I'm making it. Steve.
We got you. So.
Okay, moving.
I have a last comment then too, that be careful when you speak to press and others. They will grab comments and quotes. I've been now quoted in 3 separate articles describing data centers as tapeworms. They apparently love that analogy, and they think of it that way. Because, it grows, it consumes, it doesn't give you anything. So just, be aware.
I think, I think you're absolutely right. We got to be careful what we say, and we shouldn't basically say no comment until we're here.
Yeah.
Speak to my lawyer.
When they email you or call you, just ignore it.
We went through, Leslie and I, and
say,
I think even Xander might have been included. I got contacted, and I cleared the conversation before having it, so.
Yeah, and I do want to say, look, I'm in the industry where we use data centers quite a bit.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of good that they do, and we need to balance that. That's what we're asking about, is balance,
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And the thing I had hoped Nancy would hear before she was able, or she had to leave, was that this doesn't make our city anti-union or anti-construction or anti-applicant or anti-anything. It just makes us concerned about the residents of the city getting the best for what they.
What's the best for
moved here
us?
for. Yeah,
As in our statement of values.
exactly. Yeah.
Through the chair, moving on.
Okay, yep. Yeah, I think so. Is there any other final comments before we go? Okay, this is going to take a little while, too.
We do have somebody from the public with their hand raised. Can we take comments on this?
Yes. Sure.
Okay.
Apologies for not considering that.
Go ahead, Linda, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Hi, this is Linda again. And one of the things that caught my ear was several people mentioned square footage. And does that include, most data centers are like 8, 9, 10 stories. So I don't know how you include that because it's not the footprint, it is the how much combined when you have multiple levels. Second thing to consider is, yes, we are in a drought area, and I'd worry about water, how much water is being used, and how much is it reused and reused and reused? How much energy does that consume? Third thing is, I forgot the third thing, but the fourth thing is that the Silicon Valley Power is in fact doing a line down Lafayette Street to tie two of the power stations together and add in from the north to PG&E, or at least I assume it's PG&E from the north. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Since this really wasn't I don't have to do anything about public, okay? And that's a note and file, or not in the file, a note and keep going. So, thank you.
Moving on.
Let's move on. I think we're on to reports of commission and liaison and committee, announcements of other items, staff commissioners, anything unusual that we need to know about?
I would just say, at least maybe you spoke about it, but it would be an interesting review about how all the executive orders are actually impacting funding for our city. I know that several sectors are trending towards understanding the impacts. Healthcare, it was hit. Universities have been hit, recognizing that jurisdictional, especially governments, are asked to do more, DEI, name the gamut. It'll just be interesting to get a report on how the executive orders are actually affecting our city and our administration.
Well, as to our charter or overall? Because I think that's kind of overreaching.
Well, I would say per our charter, because I don't know how much of it, okay, let me put it this way. There are several that came through, of which I will report a few on the State of the Valley address that touched upon it. But what about our transportation dollars? Will there be any impact for funding, either coming directly from federal through any resources that we have as grants or supports for our community members, to what is the implication of state requiring any additional level of, funding impacts. And I can only say the sector that I'm familiar is healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid, NIH funding. There is I don't know, that's what I'm asking. DEI has been something that we have
tracked,
What
at
does that
least.
have to do with the planning commission?
No, I'm asking the administrator, no funding impact. I'm not saying, it'll be nice to know what is happening.
say there's
from an
nothing for
economic
planning.
landscape of the city.
Right, but how does that affect the planning commission?
I think that's what.
I can say there's nothing that's affecting any planning grants. I can tell you that.
No land use.
No land use ones.
Okay, let me
All the
put this,
grants-
posit this.
All the grants that we have for planning right now are local.
Okay. But I will posit that the implication of any tariffs to our expected construction and to our delivery of any projects, whether we are getting any materials from China, Canada, Mexico, including aluminum, steel, name the gamut of, wood, sheets, whatever, how will it impact expected anticipation construction? Even in our permits, we have DAs that are time-bound, development agreements that are time-bound. I am sure property developers are validating all their funding.
Yeah, but that was.
Let's concentrate just on what we were just working on. Right now, we're getting into more political and more national sorts of.
It falls under other items.
I think one thing that she mentioned is valid, which is the fact that
Time
we
limits.
have time-based permits and stuff.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden these guys come back and say, hey, listen,
need-
the tariffs are such that
We don't know what the tariffs are going to be. We're just
I understand,
assuming.
but I'm saying,
Never
I'm
assume.
saying if we do have that, how do we want to deal with it?
Yeah, never assume that.
But that's the same thing for data centers. We don't assume
And
anything. We
actually-
are here
and
making a
actually, most of the
hypothesis.
and most of the projects that are ready that they're going to go ahead and do, they already have all the stuff set up for them.
That's an assumption.
That's an assumption, yeah.
No.
That's an assumption.
And
I'm in the
Okay, so
industry.
this isn't going to be a conversation, so
I
I get
just
to use the point of order.
suggested, yeah.
And let's take it as a consideration. Are there impacts to what we need to do from
That's
the
exact-
current executive orders? That's a generic question. I know it might be an egregious one to try and figure it out, but it's a reasonable one. I can't anticipate any, but that's why you don't want to be surprised by it. Okay, so let's move on to Commissioner Travel and Training Reports, which will have Mario as our first speaker. Tell us how much you learned at the training at the Planning Academy.
I learned we're in deep trouble. Everything, what's happening is the state's taking control over everything. The cities are just left like, we can't really do most of the stuff. It's like, what's going on? Are the lobbyists kind of putting the money to the developers, giving money to the politicians? Because actually, whatever we can do is, I mean, I was really trying to pull my hair, and some of the stuff I was really mellow. I didn't say anything because it wouldn't have done any good. But it was very fruitful, and I kind of enjoyed it. And I believe that if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't. I would just do it online, or just give me the facts afterwards, and I'll read them myself and go from there. That would save the city some money and time. Even though I stayed at the Flamingo, which is $104, and it was a spring fling. Thank you to Elizabeth for booking me there.
At the last minute.
At the last minute.
Yeah, changes of plans. Sean was there and I was there also. I have to admit that it was enlightening at the similar problems that the other cities were facing. Cell towers, hot topic. Oh, God, what was the guy? Do you remember who it was?
It was in Southern California.
It wasn't anywhere in our vicinity, but
Yeah.
it was a similar exact issue of objections to cell towers and how they were facing it and how the city residents were reacting. So we are truly not alone in our concern over getting that nailed down.
Parking issues too, in Southern California.
Parking,
In Southern California.
traffic, state laws applicable to reducing available parking is hitting other cities as well. I heard a little bit from one of the commissioners from Saratoga, I believe, who said that they're concerned about the RENA impacts because they're getting hit hard. Their city is not geared to the type of development that's being mandated, and they're going to have to face it because the state wants to come in and take over. So we are reasonably concerned, and as City of Santa Clara needs to stay very hard on that topic to make sure that we don't miss out on our keeping some control in our own hands. Because other cities are facing the possibility of losing it imminently.
One of the things that comes to mind is in Southern California, a couple of the developers and also the cities of Orange County, they mentioned that if they build units without any parking, there's no way they can rent them or sell them. So whatever they're building will have at least for 2-car parking space. Whatever units, townhouses they're building, it's a must for them to have a 2-car parking space. Otherwise, nobody wants them. Nobody wants to park in the street because it's going to be, crapshoot looking for parking. And right now, the banks are not giving money for apartment development. Most of the money is just for building townhomes than there is apartments. So that's one of the things where developers will find out if they keep building these apartments or townhouses without any parking. People are going to say, I really don't need this. I really don't want this. And they're going to end up getting stuck with them.
I have a question for you guys. Did they talk about anything like the community opportunity to purchase that San Francisco has and I think a few others have? COPA?
I didn't hear anything about it.
So this is the requirement that if you are owner of a rental property and you're going to sell it, before you can list it, you must offer it to certain charities as established by the city. Yeah, I understand, but there are other cities that are considering it. San Jose actually said, no, we're not going to do that. But did they talk anything about those things? Okay.
No, it was very focused. The number of laws, they tried to cover the new state laws, similar to Xander's presentation, but not nearly as coherent. And it was beyond my ability as an individual to fully grasp everything that they were discussing. And I will get the materials, and hopefully they're going to be available to others here to review. But it is staggering how many new and loophole plugging laws that they're trying to introduce.
What the state is doing, what Sacramento is doing, you just can't. I just want the people to kind of wake up and say, hey, we've got to get different people into government here.
I think lunch was probably the most informative for me because I had an opportunity to speak to other commissioners from other cities and hear what the things that they're facing are. We're not unique, but we're a lot less common in that we are border locked. Some of the other counties and cities that were represented could in fact incorporate other space to grow into, and therefore did not feel that the RENA requirements were egregious. They were just going to have to add some more space. I tried to explain that Santa Clara, the only way to grow is up because there are no more places to add to our city. And wow, that's tough. Yeah, thanks. That was helpful.
Go to northern New Jersey and you'll see exactly where we're going.
Just move to the plains and keep growing sideways. Yeah, that was it. I think also I agree that although Elizabeth did an excellent job of keeping the communication open to us, part of my reading of the agenda was confusing in the sense that they showed their first session as 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning. And to be there and be there on time, I actually went up Tuesday night, which shifted the night that I was going to stay from being Wednesday night, Thursday night over to Tuesday and Wednesday. But on Thursday, we all sat and agreed Friday was a waste. So we did not need to be there at all for the closing ceremony. There was no meat. So we left Thursday night, and that worked out. But we'll probably have to review the schedules in much more detail before signing up for similar in the future. That's it. Anything else? Okay. Director of Communication Development reports.
Wait, you missed the joint venture.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I skipped right over the other one.
It's okay, I'm busy taking notes here.
Oh, yeah, joint venture status.
It was a fascinating, I wish more of us were there. It really resonated a lot. We had David Brooks, who's a very well-known PBS and New York Times press personality, very, very filled with appropriate data, key highlights. The economy is looking, again, up until 2024, not taking the data beyond that. We were doing okay. We were doing great. We were, despite all the known layoffs, I think which the tech industry was the most hit, we still only were 3.8%. Of significance was this rise in job in the healthcare realms and a balance out almost in the service industries, hospitality, hoteling, labor market. From a health standpoint, we are recognizing that the Silicon Valley and Bay Area in general are now an aging population officially. The birth rates are declining steadily. Population is declining steadily over the past years. Almost, I have all the graphs. Our average life expectancy continues to stay stable. However, our health indicators, which interestingly revolves around at least the data for those diagnosed with diabetes and hypertension, is growing. So it reflects both an aging population, a declining youth and child population, which is not good for the region because you don't have then a region that's innovating itself. So that was just a trend indicator. The AI and innovation, there was a significant, at least Q&A, understanding that where is now the new changes that are, we were steadily rising in our AI investments from a venture capitalist interest standpoint. There was recognition now there is almost a pause, but more of the VCs are looking at just investing in large language models versus the smaller apps, which are the actual, I would say, infusion of startups. So if you're only putting it in the big monopolies almost, it's still hurting in a way the economy to get infused with new employment, new innovations, exactly. So the app fronts in AI are not still fully loaded from a VC standpoint. There is a recognition on the housing costs. No surprise to us in this commission, the average, again, you could throw in Atherton here and, Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and San Jose, and the average cost of purchasing is $2.6 million. Okay, so that was one. There was a recognition, especially from the return to office, the anticipation that the commercial market will come back, but at the moment, they are still waiting for the return to office trends to catch heat. But they do see a significant increase in childcare costs because there are no more parents at home. And that went up 37%, which from an average income for a household is a significant, especially in the current economy. The average transportation costs soared from 23 to from 40% to 68%. That is. So the graph just spiked. Housing affordability continues to be almost discriminatory in its ability for people of race to purchase. Of note, again, there are no surprise, Black, Hispanic, Latinos are less than 10% affordable. Whites are in a 20% affordability housing, and Asians are at 25%. So there is that statistics. There was interesting survey responses, which I thought one would be much more relevant to us. maybe all of them are because it is land use. Of the 5 years, how many people seriously considered moving out of the region? Majority in the room at least said not, 28% said yes. And then in today's environment, how important is it to be located in Silicon Valley itself, to be innovative, start a company, and raise capital? It was a very close tie. Needed, not needed, 48% to 43%. And then 5 years from now, will people in the region be working more remote or less? No guesses there, no. And then what is more expensive to purchase, an office building or a warehouse? Exactly. Significantly more. A vacant warehouse building is far more expensive to purchase than a vacant office building in this economy. Also, the last thing, the state has started enforcing stricter rules on cities that delay housing permits. Is this a good or bad thing? 66% overwhelmingly said it's a good thing. So there you go, in response to your previous comment.
Did they touch on what they estimated or current AMI is for this?
For the region. I don't think they estimated AMI per se, but they did estimate the RENA numbers on housing affordability and the affordable housing index, but not necessarily on the median income. In general, I will just throw another stat there. There are 104 billionaires in Silicon Valley and 140,000 millionaires, not taking into consideration their primary residence.
The thing with the healthcare going up, of course, is because the population is getting older, is increasing, and the only place that I would see that's where you see building a lot of senior housing and senior development for active seniors. That's the big thing right now, and they hope that they'll eventually open up some of the housing markets. But the problem with the housing market is I don't go by, but if you're a Hispanic, Black, and you're Chinese, is most of this by your how much money you make, because there's a lot of people there, Asians, that are buying the houses left and right. So it has nothing to do with that. So as long as you have the funds to buy the houses, it doesn't matter what race you are, and at the same time, the corporations are buying the homes. So this is
Education was a big part of it,
Yeah.
because that really leads to job employment. Employment leads to affordability. Affordability leads to land use. So there you go.
Yeah, I was doing research on it for a different issue, but I had a long conversation with my councilman that lives across the street from me. It seems that from his numbers and his research, we are approaching 200,000 for AMI.
Easy.
And we were at 164 for the last published numbers, and to go from 164 to 200 is a leap.
Do you want to know what it is for Santa Clara County currently for 2024? 184,300.
Right, but I'm talking Santa Clara City.
This is for Santa Clara County, which is what we use.
Yeah, generally.
We use Santa Clara County for our purposes.
Yeah, we are, as a city, gaining wealth, and AMI is increasing proportionally for us. So us to be able to provide low-cost housing is somewhat delusionary, because there is the concept of low-cost housing is now a number that's far greater. If you look it up, you'll find that the AMI for the country, the United States, is 40,000. Okay, so we are now multitude, or almost nearing well, not a magnitude, but we're many multiples of that for the city of Santa Clara. So
There you go. That's our state of the valley.
It doesn't really matter you mention education, because you have doctors that cannot afford to buy a house.
Yeah.
That's why they're leaving. That's why they're leaving.
If I didn't live here, I couldn't afford to live.
The other thing recognizing is also our Prop 13. There are no supplies, and there's really nothing that we can do to allow the circulation to increase the ability for even the first-time home buyers, because the aging population is because they're not moving out.
Yeah.
If you look at it a little bit deeper, the aging population, you can carry your Prop 13 to another property. So if they move to, let's say, a community for the active adults, they can carry that, they can buy in there, carry that, and open the housing market over here. And that's what a lot of them are doing.
I
They're
see.
moving out of the area and boom, 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 and they're buying in other places in California.
Yeah. Okay,
Much as I love all your company, let's see if we can
yes.
wrap it up. Budget updates?
Sure. In February, your budget was your balance was at $11,091. I've not reconciled yet the travel, but let's guesstimate $2,000. So I would say you're most likely at about $9,000 in your budget right now. I don't know.
Are there any expected expenses upcoming?
No, not that I'm aware of. I
'Cause
mean,
as part of the training, whether there was, we skipped over that the expected possible training in the near future, is there anybody
So
going
you have
somewhere?
a study session in May, but it's free on CEQA.
Where is it?
It'll be here. No, CEQA. CEQA. Sorry. Study session on CEQA, and it'll be here in the council chambers
yeah.
during your meeting. It's a free study session.
Chair, quick reminder, Form 700s are due March 31st.
Yes.
Done.
No, April 1st, but
Still have
yes,
to do it.
March 31st, yeah. I need to do mine. There's changes to it. That's something that I noticed in the email. We must file directly with the FCCA. I think I said that right. And instead of FCCP, okay. So rather than just submit a form locally, we have to actually. Okay. Upcoming agenda items.
So at your next meeting on April 16th, we'll have the item that we continued this evening. We should be bringing to you our second zoning code cleanup, as well as a use permit and possibly a general plan amendment and rezoning, and possibly a billboard.
The rezoning, is that the
Aren't we doing
1,400?
the Housing? Is that what you said first?
Yes, the item that we continued this evening, the housing element, yes.
Is that
Amendment.
the rezoning, is that going to be the 1,400 Coleman,
The rezoning will be on Cheney Street.
on Cheney Street?
It's for a 8-unit townhome development.
City council actions.
The last city council meeting, they heard the AT&T appeal, and they did uphold the planning commission's decision to approve the 3 light pole monopole design. And then also Commissioner Wang was reappointed for another term.
Excellent. Congratulations.
And those are the only 2 items.
All right. And on that note, I think we should start over.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Second.
Thank you.
Wait, we still got a vote on adjourning. We haven't voted yet.
By consensus.
Without a
Good, I'll get AT&T connection.